consists of Norwegian law professor and former chair of the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, Mats Andenes, and two international human rights lawyers named Jared Genser and Stephanie Herman, and then me. And as a legal team, we have taken several steps in the case of Sultana and Luara. This includes both public advocacy for the immediate release of the house arrest, close dialogue and advocacy together with international human rights organizations, in addition to the submitting of urgent appeals to the UN special procedures and a complaint to the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. And our actions has led to a communications that was issued by the UN special procedures sent to the Moroccan government denouncing the brutal house arrest. And it also led to the issuing of a public press release by the UN special procedures. And in these latest actions that were taken by the special procedures, she also denounced the widespread and systematic abuses of the Sahrawi population in general living in occupied territories, and also documented violations both against ISACOM members and also CUDESA members who was with Sultana and Luara in the house arrest. We have also submitted the complaint to the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. And this complaint is currently pending treatment, and it was made public by our team when we submitted the complaint. And as you may know, in previous decisions that have been rendered by the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, this provides vital documentation to the imprisonment of Sahrawi activists, with the working group holding that this form of imprisonment of Sahrawi activists is arbitrary and thus illegal. And in the decisions rendered by the working group, we have established a systematic pattern of the arbitrary arrest of activists without any outstanding prior arrest warrant, the practice of torture and usage of confessions signed under torture, and the subsequent imprisonment of Sahrawi activists following political prosecution. And in many decisions, the lack of a legal basis for the detention of the activist compound by excessive violence and also acts of torture can be traced. And this is the case of Sultana and what we are denouncing by our complaint. We are denouncing the fact that Sultana is a prisoner in her own home and a prisoner of conscience, that she has remained under house arrest since November 2020, and that the Moroccan government has not brought any charges against Sultana to justify this detention, that the security forces are blocking her home and have presented no warrant, that there have been no verbal confirmation for the de facto house arrest from the police commissioner, who also threatens Sultana with arrests and torture should she leave her home. And also, as we could see in the video that you just showed us, the house arrest is also circled by a tremendous amount of violence, including both physically, psychologically, and sexually violence, where they have harassed the people living in the house, but also thrown liquid inside of the house and trashed the entire home of the Kaya family. And during the latest raid of 22nd August, they again were physically and sexually assaulted, with Sultana also being affected with COVID-19. And now we have asked the UN Working Group to examine the case of Sultana and Luara, requesting that it concludes that she is being held arbitrarily and in violation of Morocco's obligations under international law. And I believe that given this background we have of documentation from the UN level, but also UN human rights organizations and special procedures, I am sure that we will be able to hold Morocco accountable for its crimes, and that it is possible to break the silence on the crimes committed against Sultana and her family. But what we need to continue to do, because it has lasted for over 300 days, is to continue to stand with them, both in the occupied territory, but also internationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Tuna, for your valuable contribution. But my second question is, you as a lawyer, do you see any real possibility that International Red Cross would assume its responsibility and establishing a permanent mission in the occupied territories, especially after the resumption of war, since it is one of the 17 non-self-governing territories?
Well, it remains crucial, and even more so, that the international community acts swiftly to protect both Sultana and Luara, but also all Sahrawis living in the occupied territories. And this is especially following the widespread crackdown that we have witnessed ever since the end of the ceasefire in the escalation of the armed conflict of 13th November 2020. And as the violence exerted by the Moroccan occupying forces is carried out with the aim of silencing the call for the right to self-determination and to muffle all movement in the territory, we run actually the risk of the occupied territory being left pitch dark. In other words, whilst the voices from within occupied territory is being silenced, the international community is also being barred from entering, starting with international human rights observers and journalists, but also the fact that MINURSO lacks a human rights mandate and the UN special procedures is not given independent access. And in this environment, in the occupied territory, a culture of impunity has taken its hold, and this is allowed to continue to grow even worse. And whilst this is happening, and whilst the UN mission is placed in the territory, the International Committee of Red Cross is not participating, or it's not in the occupied territory. And this is despite the fact that we are dealing with occupied territory, and second, despite the fact that the ceasefire has ended. I think that our starting point must be that international humanitarian law confers certain rights on the ICRC, such as the right of initiative in the event of an armed conflict that we have in the present moment in the occupied territory. And second, gives the right to visit prisoners of war, but also civilian internees, which Sultana and Luara is, but also all other Sahrawi political prisoners. And with these rights granted to ICRC, and with ICRC operating as the guardians of humanitarian law, which is their role under the international law system, it's no doubt that ICRC should, and that I also urge ICRC to closely monitor, document, and respond to violations of humanitarian law taking place in these territories, but also to visit imprisoned Sahrawi human rights offenders. And I believe that in this environment, and with the growing documentation of systematic and widespread abuses, the ICRC have no other choice than to assume its responsibility. For too long, the Sahrawi people have been living without any form of protection. They have been left behind, with the Sahrawis living unprotected. The question of then realpolitik, or what is realistic, is no longer on the table. It is time to act. We have to turn to the international institutions of law. It is time to assume the responsibility, and both for the ICRC, but also for the UN. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Tuna. And now, Muaima Abdeslam, the Sahrawi representative in Geneva. As we approach the 48th of the Human Rights Council, could you please tell us about the main lines that the Sahrawi representative in Geneva have set in coordination with the human rights organizations to shed lights on human rights violations in the occupied territories in general, and on Sultana's case in particular?
Thank you very much. I will try to speak slowly because I know that there is interpretation, so I will try to help the interpreter. Thank you very much for inviting me to this event. For me, it's an honor to have been chosen by the youth to speak to you and show my solidarity with Sultana Khaya and her family. I want to show my solidarity, and I want to tell them that they are great women. They are big women. They are doing a great job. And can you imagine that the state of Morocco it feels so threatened with this small woman in her house putting her flag on the roof of her house. Can you imagine how weak they are? How weak they are, and how strong is Sultana and her family. That's why I really want to share with you my respect to her and to her family. And I hope that all Sahrawis really do the same thing and have the same courage. I will begin with saying that the UN has really lost all credibility in Western Sahara. The Sahrawi people has lost all faith in the UN, including the protection of Sultana Khaya and her family, and in protection of the Sahrawi in general. As you know, Western Sahara, having in consideration its legal status, that it's not having no administrative power, because Spain has withdrawn in 1975, and Morocco, it's an occupying power, and it's not recognized as occupying power. So Western Sahara should be treated and protected by the UN, because it's a non-self-governing territory with no administrative power. So the protection of the people of this country should go under the UN. But unfortunately, the UN is so corrupted, and in place to be part of the solution of the conflict of Western Sahara, the UN has become part of the problem. We have to begin by saying the question of the protection of human rights and the mandate of the MINURSO, which is discussed for so many years. So many countries have tried to raise their voices and to give this mission the mandate of the protection of human rights. It's France, le pays de la liberté, l'égalité, la fraternité, je sais pas quoi, l'égalité. It's the same country who is blocking the protection of the same rights in Western Sahara. And no country has the courage to really speak up and to impose some kind of a way to protect the Sahrawi peoples. If you have failed to give the mandate of the MINURSO, you can create another thing. Like, for example, giving, opening the door to the special procedures and to the mechanism of the UN to report, to write, to go inside, to see what's going on in Western Sahara. So we cannot forgive this way of the UN to be silenced in front of the huge violations that are occurring in a systematic and a daily basis in Western Sahara. This is something that we, the Sahrawis, we are not going to forgive ever. And the Sahrawis has lost all faith in the UN. What we need now is the UN to work in the confidence in the Sahrawi people. Because for us, the UN is just part of the problem. They are not anymore part of the solution. So even if they are trying now to move, and by naming the Misutra or whatever it is, for us, the Sahrawis, we are divorced with the peace process. We are divorced with the UN, and the UN has failed to the aspirations of the Sahrawi people. So speaking about the session of 48 session of human rights, yes, it has begun the Monday 13. And there has been, as you know, in Geneva, we have a group of support of Western Sahara composed by countries, and also a group that is composed by NGOs. By the way, I invite all NGOs to be part of this group. And both, they have activities during this session to highlight the situation of family of Sultana Khaya. The last Tuesday, I can't remember very well the date, Mr. Francisco, who is the ambassador representative of Timor-Leste, have read a statement on behalf of the Geneva Group support. They spoke to the High Commissioner and they asked her for the protection of Sultana Khaya and her family. We, as a group, and we are trying to coordinate the group of human rights, we have tried that Sultana Khaya herself speak on a panel. It's called, it was last Thursday, a panel called the situation of women and girls in the zone of conflict situation. We have succeeded to be part of the 8 first speakers, and Sultana it was supposed to speak, but the corruption in the UN is so deep that we were number 8 and we were moved to number 11, and they didn't allow Sultana to speak up. So the UN is so corrupted, especially here in Geneva, that I have no hope that anything can change. I hope maybe the work that Tony spoke about special procedures, because they are have some kind of independence. But in relation of the Human Rights Council and the High Commissioner, I am very disappointed. And I tell my people, you have to look for ways to protect yourself and to have your independence yourself. The UN is not going to do nothing because they are part of the problem, unfortunately. In the question of the ICRC, I just, if you allow me, Mariam, to speak about the ICRC. The ICRC is the International Red Cross, which his mandate is to work with the people who are under occupation and civilians who are in a conflict zone. So Sahrawis goes under this line, and normally ICRC should open their offices and they should go to Western Sahara and to open humanitarian passage, couloirs, I don't know how to call it in English, roads, humanitarian roads, to help the Sahrawi people, to help Sultana. But unfortunately, ICRC, it's like the UN. They are very politicized organizations who are hearing very closely the words of the one who are financing them. And the one who are financing them are not the one exactly who are trying to help or to have a solution of Western Sahara. So just I want to sum up that the international community has decided to sacrifice the Sahrawi people on exchange of fake stability in Morocco, and because the European countries and others are very afraid about how Morocco uses the immigration, the terrorism, and drugs as threats and as blackmail to these countries. So they are much more afraid of what Morocco can do with the immigration than the reaction of the Sahrawis. So my advice to my Sahrawi people is that we have no choice than continue the struggle for our independence and to try to help ourselves. Also, I want to tell my people to be very proud to be part of these people of Western Sahara who have gained this battle of resistance, because everybody is against us. No one is trying to help us. And we have really resisted, and we have been able to build our state in exile, and we have been able to begin the struggle, and we will continue in every place to demand our right to have an independent state. So thank you very much, and I will continue to have my compromise with my people and with our martyrs and with all, and with Sultana Khaya and the others, and we'll promise them that we are not going to deceive them, inshallah, until we are dead or we are victorious.
Thank you, Moima. My second question is, as long that there is corruption in Geneva, do you still have some hope that the work that has been done in other Sahrawi representatives in other countries would result the stop of the siege imposed on Sultana, or you are totally frustrated and hope nothing?
Yes, actually, I am very frustrated because there are so many things. Tony can testify more than me about the amount of work that has been done from Sultana Khaya. There are people who are not sleeping day and night working on her case, trying to raise her case in capitals, in parliament, with the foreign ministry, with everybody, not her case, and other cases in Western Sahara. But my disappointment comes when I see that the question of Western Sahara is monopolized by 5 countries who call themselves the friends of Western Sahara. From my point of view, they are the enemy of Western Sahara, who are Russia, USA, UK, France, and Spain. So these 5 countries, they have monopolized, I don't know if this word exists in English, the question of Western Sahara, and have forbidden, between brackets, all the other countries, the 180 countries who left from their responsibilities as the UN members. Remember that the question of Western Sahara is the question of decolonization. It's a question that is listed in the 4th committee. So people of Western Sahara are entitled to have the right of self-determination and to implementation of international law. But unfortunately, these 5 countries have avoided the participation of all of the rest of the world in to be part of the solution of this conflict. This conflict of Western Sahara is affecting the life of millions of people in North Africa. We are talking about borders who are closed. We are talking about there is no economic change. There is no nothing happening in the north of Africa because of the conflict of Western Sahara. And this monopolization by these 5 countries has really become a big obstacle to the solution of Western Sahara. So the question of Western Sahara has been created. I'm sorry to say that to my colleagues, Europeans here, you are not part of this problem, by the way. But it's a problem that has been created in Europe or in the West, and the solution is forbidden and it's blocked by the West and by the European countries. So can you imagine how we feel so impuissant, how powerless? I don't know if it's in English this word exists, in front of these politicians who decide our future and decided to sacrifice us because they are comfortable with how the King of Morocco is drawing them. He's the police of the immigration or whatever, or they are afraid of the 33 millions of Moroccans to go in one day to Morocco. So they decided to just close their eyes in front of the injustice in Western Sahara. I have no confidence in the UN. I have no confidence in anyone except in my people. I only have confidence in my people, and I know that every Sahrawi, in wherever he finds himself, he will continue to fight for Sultana Khaya and for others until we finish this blockade imposed on her and her family, and also on all the Sahrawis.
Thank you, Maima. It is a very, very sad to live in unfair and unjust world that only have interest in his own interests without thinking about people who live in sufferance like the Sahrawi people. Now, Karen Chill. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. What is your message of solidarity to the human rights defender, Sultana?
Well, thank you for the invitation, and you can imagine it is quite difficult to speak after Moima. And that's why I want to continue to say that I'm very happy to see the development of the organization in the youth field, for instance, in the occupied territories, but also in the refugee camps, because as Moima said, the key to the solution will come from the Sahrawis themselves. And then it is important to organize yourself. And I really, really appreciated that there are several activities, new organizations, because this will be necessary to reach what all of us are fighting for since many, many years, the right of self-determination of the Sahrawi people. And in this context, I also want to send all our solidarity from Austria for Sultana, her sister, and her mother. For me, living in a democratic country, it is not possible to imagine how you live and how you are detained in your own house, which conditions you have in your life. And I want to give this message of solidarity and also demand that this situation is finished quite soon, and also to demand to stop this violence of human rights in the occupied territories. This is the main message, I think, today. I'm very grateful also that I heard the news from Tonne. This was also very interesting, and from Moima. And I think after the conference, we have to cooperate to put the things, let's say, to have some projects to coordinate the work, to help Sultana, but also the whole of the Sahrawi society. And let me just add one thing, because I'm also fighting for that since I was a young activist. I think the way the United Nations work have to be changed, because it is not even necessary that you have 5 countries in the Security Council. 1 country is enough to block everything. And I think this is a disaster. You do not even need corruption. You need 1 country that is against the peace plan and against justice, and everything is blocked. Even the other hundreds of countries are in favor. And I think as long as this is not changing, we will have discussions like that. But nevertheless, I think we have to be ready to find solutions to put the topic of human rights violation in the occupied territories of Western Sahara, but also the conflict of Western Sahara on the European, on the international table. So again, all the solidarity from Austria to Sultana Khaya, to her sister, to her mother, and to all the other political detainees in the occupied territories. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karin, for your fruitful contribution. Thank you for being with us today. Odile Valero, hello.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me today. It has been really fruitful to listen to what has already been said, and everything I wanted to say is already nearly said. But you had some question for me.
Yeah. What is your message? It's the same question. What is your message of solidarity to Sultana Khaya and to activists who exist in the occupied territories in general?
I also wanted to start with thanking you in the youth organizations for doing this webinar and to invite us all. I had the privilege to host a big group of young Sahrawis 2 years ago in my home in Catalonia, and we worked on a youth peace. It was a youth peace summit, and then there was a youth peace declaration. During that time, there was a lot of discussions between the young about how can we solve the situation, how should we go forward. And many of you also spoke about taking up arms again. Others said that is not a solution. I can understand that you want to do it, but I can also say that for me, as a Green, as an ecologist, as a peace lover, I don't believe in violence, and I don't believe that this will be the way forward. I can understand, but I hope you will not be in the situation that you have to take or to escalate the already ongoing conflict. To Sultana, I would really like to tell her that we think about her, that she's on the agenda. We know about what's happening to her, and that a lot of people around the world are trying to make her voice heard. We have Amnesty that is working. We have we heard now from the lawyers, and I really believe that we have to work on the legal issues, like both on the national legal system, the Moroccan legal system, but on the international one. Because there is some also, human rights, they also apply in Morocco, of course, but we know that they don't follow them when it comes to the Sahrawi question. But you have to work on the legal system you have in Morocco and also on the international one. I think that is very, very important. But it's not enough, because I can see now, for example, what has happened with the UN. I've also lost faith in UN. All the countries, we say, no, we should follow the UN process. We are following the UN process. We cannot do anything. We don't do anything for Western Sahara now. We just follow the UN. And UN is doing nothing, really nothing. And that has been for a long time, for many years. So we cannot trust that the UN will do anything. And can I trust the European Union, where I was working for so many years? No, I cannot trust the European Union either, because we have Spain and we have France. And they are stopping everything. Just as we heard before about the migration, as long as we have the situation with migration, they will do everything that Morocco tells them to do. France already before that, Spain also, but the rest of the countries, there was some opinion or some resistance from my country, from Sweden. But I have also seen that it's more or less and less on the agenda, Western Sahara, because there is so much pressure from the other countries that we shouldn't demand so much. We did demand very much, and we got some of the countries to come with us with the fishery agreements and so on. But all the time, it's more and more difficult. And something that is very, very scary, I would say, when it comes to Sweden, is that there was a report during the time I was in the European Parliament. The Swedes, we decided to recognize the Western Sahara, and it was not done. And when we, together with the Social Democrats, came into government, then we said, okay, we voted in favor, both the Social Democrats and us Greens. We want this to happen. We want it to be realized. But the Social Democrats, they didn't dare. And so we made some kind of a report, and it was so bad. So we said, we will not publish it. It will not be official. It's not an official report. So they put it in the drawer. But now they use it. When there is questions about Western Sahara, they take that report out of the drawer as if it was an official report. And that is very, very dangerous when it comes to the way Sweden see Western Sahara and what we can do to influence the work in the European Union, in the UN, etc. So that is something I'm really worried about. I think that we have to look for solutions. War is not the solution. We have to find other solutions, but of course it's really difficult. But somewhere between everything that is law, and to continue to go to the European Court of Justice, to continue to go to the international courts, that is really important, to go to work on the human rights legislation, the international one, and also work on the Moroccan legislation to see what can we do in all these aspects, because that is one way. And at the same time, we need to have more awareness, to raise opinion around the world. It has been very difficult now during COVID, because everything is about COVID. The countries, they have had the possibility to do a lot of stupidities and to hide what they have been doing, because nobody has been interested. But this is now slowly passing, and we can start to work as we did before again. And I believe that we have to work a lot on the public opinion in those countries that can put pressure on the 5 countries we heard about before. I think that is really crucial. And then the resistance, the non-violent resistance, or whatever you finally decide. I think the resistance from the Sahrawis is really important. And with the help of us from outside. I made a lot of notes when I was listening And about the 300 days of house arrest, it's really not acceptable at all. And I hope that she will be, and they will be released from that house arrest as soon as possible. I wish her all the best, and I wish all of you the best. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Bodil. We are really grateful for you and for Karen and for all others that stand for in solidarity with our just cause. It means a lot to us as Sahrawis, and it is very nice to meet people like you who kept on the same way, trying to help us to gain our independence. Thank you so much, Bodil. Thank you, Karen, and thank you for all others. Minetto Larabes Swedat, member of the Polisario Front National Secretariat, and the Secretary General of Sahrawi women. Welcome, Minetto. Solidarity with compatriots in the occupied zones who are being victims of Moroccan occupation is one of the objects of the National Union of Sahrawi Women. Do you think that you have made progress recently in raising the issue of human rights on the international level?
Thank you very much. First of all, allow me to thank you in the youth flag against the occupation. We are very proud to have each time more youth advocating for our issue. And also I would like to thank all of you inspiring women attending with us today. Thank you for your time, for your dedication. And of course, my colleague Mayma, nice to see you again. And welcome all of you for this speaking on solidarity, basically in the National Union of Sahrawi Women. One of our main role, as you said, is to always raise awareness about the continuing violations against our innocent people in the occupied territories. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, as it affected many people in everywhere, our work also at the international level was affected. But this doesn't mean that we were not being able to at least do some efforts from our side. For example, the last international conference that we did on the 8th of August in solidarity with Sultana, where many organizations, women organizations from different parts of the world were able to attend. This is still not enough. As Mayma said, and as a Sahrawi, as a woman of not only secretary, but also representing the feeling of most of women, unfortunately, a little bit fed up or not very hopeful to the international community. We still have a glimpse of hope. For example, having great women with us today dedicating their time. This is not something that we can take for granted, of course, but still, unfortunately, the lack of the willing from the internet, from the UN and from the peace. Them the MINURSO to monitor the internet, the human rights situation. All of this really is not helping us in our work, because this is also make it a little bit for us difficult to hope in anything that we are trying to do. But still, we are in continued correspondence with different women organizations, giving them an update about the situation of our sister Sultana and her family. The women in general in the refugee camps, wherever we do any kind of events, we always show our solidarity. We stand. This is not only to say that we feel the same sadness that really overcome in every house in the occupied territory because of the continuing violation, but also especially what happened lately to Sultana and her sister, the sexual violation that's what committed to them against them by the Moroccan security forces. It is very difficult, as I said. We are trying our best. It's never been enough. The result is not easy to be seen, or we cannot say that we are not that hopeful to see any concrete result, but still we are committed to work to make always Sultana feel that her pain is ours. What she's suffering there and the many other Sahrawis is always our suffer in the refugee camps and in every part of the world. So this is basically what I can say on this.
Thank you, Minatou. We are sure that the National Union of Sahrawi Women will be a window of advocacy and a pillar of conveying the voice of Sultana and of all Sahrawis in the world, in the outside world. Yeah. Thank you, Minatou. Ruth Maniger, welcome, Ruth. Thank you for joining us today. It is a great opportunity to have you with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mariam, and thank you for inviting me for this conference today. It's a great honor for me to be a part of it, and it makes me so sad to hear the story of Sultana and her sister and her mother. And on the behalf of the Social Democratic women in Austria, I would like to say and show all my respect and solidarity for your people. And let me just say, we have to keep on fighting on your side. And we have to break the silence for Sultana and our sisters. And I hope and thank you, Tone and Karin, for her support for your people. And yeah, thank you. And please tell Sultana, we, the Social Democratic women, thinking of her and supporting her, and all the best for her, and all the respect for your fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Paloma Lopez. What is your solidarity message to Haya's family?
Buenas tardes a todas. Quería mandar un saludo, lo primero a Sultana y a su familia, y agradecer este acto de solidaridad que se está realizando hoy. Me parece que actos como este que realizamos son fundamentales y son los que tenemos que ir multiplicando a lo largo de los diferentes países y de las diferentes organizaciones que están en cada uno de los países. Yo sabéis que estaba de eurodiputada, Bodil, he tenido el placer de coincidir con Bodil en la Cámara y trabajar precisamente por la solidaridad con el pueblo saharaui, pero creo que tenemos que seguir insistiendo en cada uno de los países en los que estamos. Creo que tenemos que seguir insistiendo en hacer actos, en multiplicar los actos de solidaridad con el pueblo saharaui y especialmente en este caso con la situación de Sultana y de su familia. El acoso al que está sometida, las graves violaciones de los derechos humanos tienen que darse a conocer en todo el mundo, junto con el papel que está desarrollando la MINURSO. La MINURSO tiene que ampliar considerablemente cuál es su misión. No puede ser que no tenga o que siga sin tener un papel relevante en materia de derechos humanos. Cuando se cambió el gobierno de Perú, a nosotros nos resultó muy satisfactorio que el gobierno de Perú retomara nuevamente la posición con el Polisario y el apoyo al pueblo saharaui. Y realmente yo creo que hay que volver con todos los países a reafirmar ese apoyo a la situación que lamentablemente se vive en los territorios ocupados y que haya manifestaciones internacionales en todos los sitios precisamente con lo que está sucediendo. Desde Madrid nosotros vamos a intentar hacer un acto de solidaridad con todas las organizaciones de apoyo al Sáhara para mostrar nuevamente nuestro compromiso, nuestra solidaridad y manifestar lógicamente que no se puede seguir manteniendo la única colonia en las condiciones en las que está, sin el compromiso firme por parte de Naciones Unidas de llevar a cabo el referendo de autodeterminación. El tiempo de seguir diciendo que se está comprometido con el pueblo saharaui ya ha pasado. Hay que poner todos los mecanismos en marcha para que efectivamente se lleve este referéndum de autodeterminación y se pongan todos los mecanismos con todo el apoyo internacional para que se realice ese referéndum. Sabéis que la situación en España no ha sido fácil, sabéis la crisis que hemos tenido con Marruecos precisamente cuando se atendió al presidente Brahim en España ante la situación de COVID, y sabéis que para España bueno, pues ha habido una situación de crisis importante con Marruecos. Una crisis que Marruecos aprovecha, como siempre, para abrir la puerta a la inmigración irregular, sin importarles efectivamente cuáles sean las consecuencias, no ya para la economía, para Marruecos, para España, sino precisamente para todas las personas que ha impulsado en esa inmigración irregular a las que ha dejado lamentablemente abandonadas, y especialmente con el uso de los menores. Desde España, desde luego, tenemos que dar una respuesta importante a todas estas actuaciones que se adoptan desde Marruecos, ¿no? Y tenemos que denunciar precisamente esa vulneración de todos los derechos, de las mujeres, de los derechos humanos y también de los menores, que se produce desde Marruecos cada vez que quiere conseguir sus intereses. Creo que en este momento en el Parlamento Europeo ha habido una respuesta positiva en contra, o bueno, apuntando, señalando a Marruecos, diciendo que efectivamente no puede utilizar estas medidas y realizar estas actuaciones. Y en ese sentido me parece que es un elemento muy importante para utilizar, porque en el Parlamento Europeo es un gran altavoz precisamente para defender los derechos humanos y toda la causa saharaui. No me voy a extender mucho. Lo que quería era mostrar, en este caso desde Comisiones Obreras de Madrid, sabéis que es un sindicato, con el primer sindicato de España, con una gran representación y nuestro compromiso firme, desde luego, con la causa saharaui y especialmente con las mujeres saharaui, que para nosotros son nuestras hermanas y un ejemplo clarísimo de lucha permanente por sus derechos. Nosotras, como os digo, vamos a procurar a lo largo de este año hacer un acto de apoyo en Madrid hacia las mujeres saharauis, hacer un acto de apoyo para que efectivamente lo más importante, que es que se visibilice la lucha del pueblo y se ponga en el foco la defensa de los derechos humanos, no se abandone, sigamos apostando por ella duramente y tengamos todo este marco de relaciones y de conexiones internacionales que nos parecen que son fundamentales. Si tenéis posibilidad, hacerla llegar a Sultana Haya y a su hermana todo nuestro apoyo, toda nuestra solidaridad y todo también nuestro agradecimiento por lo que están haciendo y por la situación y que esperemos que se recuperen pronto con la triste situación que tienen. Un abrazo para todas.
Thank you, Paloma Lopez, for your contribution. Thanks a lot. Derek Abdel Fattah. Hello, Derek.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Based on the work that the Yochisario has been doing since the beginning of the stage on Sultana, do you expect satisfying results that may put pressure on Morocco to stop the human rights violations?
I guess that as Sahrawi Youth Union, we were given no choice but to resist and trying to expose what happens in the occupied area, especially what happens in with the comrade Sultana Haya, because actually for us is the epitome of bravery. It's the icon. And this is something that it's for us, it's a real inspiration. So actually we expect from ourselves more than we expect from the international bodies, because actually everything is based on the efforts we did, the main techniques that we follow to try and to raise more awareness about what happens with her, about the flagrant violations committed against all the defenseless people in the occupied zones. And of course, actually, we expect a lot, especially because now, actually, as UZ Vice President, now I have the portfolio of human rights, and I'm about hosting a big session about what happens with Sultana Haya under the hashtag of women icon for us. And this is something that we will work together with the comrades in UZ and also with the Pan-African youth, trying to raise more awareness, advocate about what happens. In the same time, also through our representative or our sister organization representative in the international bodies like the Pan-African, the AUC, and also the European Parliament, to try and to put questions about the case and the pledge of Sultana Haya. And I guess also that sometimes the solution is in our hands as youth. As youth, we are the core of any nation, as solidarity also is the core of the resistance of the defenseless people around the world. So actually, what we need to do, or what we must do to see, let's say light in the end of the tunnel, is trying to organize kind of campaigns through social media platforms, and also at the same time we will, let's say that we are not waiting anything from the international bodies, because actually we know that they pay attention only to the noisy plights around the world and peoples who pay more, because actually money speaks more than values. This is the systematic of the world, and this is the basic pillar that the world follows. So I guess that everything is based on the efforts that we give as young people, and about also the steps that we take to try and to expose what happens in the occupied zones. In the same time also, because we don't want to make this case of Sultana Haya as a trendy case, when we can just talk it about today, but tomorrow we can just forget about what happens. Then it have, because actually it means that we as Sahrawis, we have been, or we was born to be just victims of occupation, or being under the occupation. At the same time also, or we have been just, we was born to be refugees or occupied people. So I guess that there is a lot of responsibility that we need to take as young people, trying to visible the situation of what happened with Sultana Haya. So let's talk about the future steps that we're gonna take, like this international session that we will take under the UZ umbrella and also the Pan-African Youth. In the same time, also we will try to work with a platform, a new platform that we create, which called Youth Connect the World. Through this platform, we're gonna also talk about the human rights, because it's really silly that we are in the 21st century and peoples around the world are still fighting for acquisition right, like human rights, and also saying or not be tortured just because they say that where they belong. This is something that it's so ridiculous that happens in 21st century, and this is something that I feel so ashamed for, to trying to advocate about this acquisition right for a young female in the occupied areas. While the powers, I mean the countries who has the power in the world, always trying to pay lip to human rights, democracy, while we feel that democracy has failed us as Sahrawis, to be honest. So it's really shameful that in this time, all these countries who are always talking about human rights and legality, they have never been, they have never felt themselves special, like the European countries and USA, Russia, and also China. That they said always that, okay, actually Morocco is blackmailing us through immigration, but they are not blackmailing them through this flagrant of violations against peoples. If they really feel that they are humans, I guess that this is the real threatening that people could face. And they can have this kind of, reaction, but we can see nothing. It means that now we are the responsibles to trying to make a change and be the hope creators for the comrade Sultana and for every young female or every woman around the world, to try to give her voice and create the flexible platform to advocate about her rights. Because actually, let's have this basic pillar in this world that we are living in. Let's focus, or let's shed light that the woman who gives life is worth defending and standing up for. So this is our work as women. This is the challenge. This is the obstacle that they put in front of us. Let's make incentive and let's move on. For Sultana, for every single person in this world who is really suffering in silence, let's give them voice. This is our compromise to the humanity, not only to Sultana. And I don't need to be a feminist or to be a girl or to be Sahrawi to advocate about what happens with Sultana Khaya. This is a trial for the world's conscience. So let's have a life conscience and trying to make a difference and to make a change and trying to give Sultana Khaya her rights and trying to give her the platform when she can say that she belongs to Western Sahara without being afraid, without being tortured, without being jailed. This is something in our hands. So let's move on. And thank you so much for giving me this platform. It's a real great pleasure to have this intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Darak. Thank you for your valuable and authentic and fruitful contribution. I'm sure that Sultana will be very glad and happy to have such young women defending and standing with her. Thank you again, Darak. And now, الفايدة خير. الفايدة خير, the niece of Sultana. Could you please tell us how is Sultana physically, emotionally, and the most important, psychologically?
مهم. فمن استعمار الاحتلال تبقى الإرادة هي محددة البقاء، وإرادة الشعب الصحراوي لا تقهر. كانت تصبح بذلك المناضلة سلطانة خيا وهي تواجه جحافل القمع المغربي لأكثر من 300 يوم، نعم أزيد من 300 يوم، وهي تقوم بمعية شقيقتها الواعرة. عظيمة هذه العائلة التي دخلت دفاتر التاريخ التي لا تمحى. طيلة 300 يوم سلطانة وهي تسدح من خلال النوافذ والسطح والشارع بمواقفها الداعمة لحق الشعب الصحراوي في الكينونة والوجود. جبهت خلال هذه الفترة بسلسلة من الانتهاكات والجرائم ضد الإنسانية ومصادرة في حق التعبير بل وحتى الحياة، حيث تقوم الاحتلال المغربي المحاصر لمنزلها بالقوة على مدى الأشهر الماضية بتعذيبها هي وكافة أسرتها من خلال فرض إقامة جبرية عليها. الأمر لم يتوقف عند الحصار أو الإقامة الجبرية بل على مستوى التعذيب النفسي والجسدي من خلال اقتحام المنزل الذي يبقى خالدا في أذهان كل الصحراويين، وهو الذي سطر أروع ملامح الصمود والمقاومة في وجه هذا النظام المحتل. لا يخفى على أحد أن قوات الاحتلال المغربية التي اقتحمت منزل أكثر من مرة مستعينة بفرق خاصة مقنعة، وخلال كل اقتحام تقوم هذه الفرق بالتعذيب كل المتواجدين بالمنزل بشكل سادح. تعرضت المناضلة سلطانة سيد إبراهيم خيا هي وأختها الواعرة للاغتصاب بتاريخ 12 ماي 2021، وما رافق ذلك من جرائم طالت والدتهم المسنة أمينته الناجم. أيضا نستحضر مجموعة من الأساليب القذرة التي يستعملها الاحتلال مثل قطع الكهرباء لمدة 5 أشهر بشكل متواصل، رمي المواد السامة المجهولة التركيبة من داخل المنزل وخارجه، العبث بمحتويات المنزل، وكذلك آخر حدث اللي هو حدث إصابة سلطانة بفيروس كورونا، وهي الآن تعاني من دون أي علاج. يعني الأمر ما نقدر نتكلم فيه لأنه أمر مزعج، واللي تشوف فرد من عائلتك يعاني من ذا المرض وما عنده ولا علاج ولا يقدر يعدل أي شيء، وتشوفه كل نهار يعني تزيد حالته. يعني الطريقة الوحيدة اللي يمكنني من خلالها مساعدة عائلتي هي مشاركتي على جميع مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي باش نوصل صوتنا للعالم ونوجه رسائل باش نسمع صوتنا ومعاناتنا لجميع المنظمات والمنظمات الدولية لحقوق الإنسان، وكذلك أي شخص يؤمن بالعدالة. سلطانة محتاجتكم، سلطانة ذي الفترة، سلطانة يعني محتاجتكم أكثر من كانت. سلطانة كانت واقفة ما قد توقف مع حد في السطاح تعاني. سلطانة من الشعب الصحراوي واقفة مقاتلة، يعني ظرف محتاجة الشعب الصحراوي كامل، وإن شاء الله يشافيها يا مولانا، وطوبى لمن عشق الحرية وضحى لأجلها.
Thank you, dear Faida. It is really sad to hear about the horrible situation that Sultana and her family exist in. We hope that this siege will be lifted soon. And we got to the end of this webinar. Thank you for participating, and thank you for the ones who take their time to watch this solidarity gathering. We hope to see changes on the ground on Sultana's case, on the political prisoners situation, and on the Sahrawi issue in general. Always remember, together we are stronger. Thank you all. Bye. Thank you very much.